Welcome to Upticks. I'm Jake Falcon, the founder of Falcon Wealth Advisors and your host for Upticks. Today is our 67th episode, Solving Politics. All right, Cory, welcome back to the show.
Thanks. It feels good to be back.
Yeah, and so for today's topic, we wanted to talk all things politics, which isn't really a big favorite subject of mine, but for a lot of the meetings lately I've been having with clients, they've been very concerned on what's going on in Washington.
And I figured we don't hear enough about politics.
So you like politics?
Talk more about it on this show. I'm just kidding.
Okay,
I mean, in the world we live in today, I think we all hear plenty about politics, and for those reasons specifically, it just causes people concern.
Exactly, and it's on the news a lot, so why don't we address it, right? So let's bring up some of the topics today, and then maybe go into how it may or may not impact somebody's portfolio.
Perfect.
So probably one that's pretty up there, or pretty scary, would be an impeachment. Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts on that if Trump gets impeached?
It's hard to say. I suppose if Trump actually were to get impeached, I think that's a very low probability. So let me start by saying that.
Right.
I think from an investment standpoint, I don't think something like that is so unpredictable that I don't think that you should be trying to change what you're doing because of that possibility. However, I think if things were to develop, the headlines surrounding that volatility presumably would just cause, if we're talking about the market, things to go up and down. But I do know that I read a report not too long ago that looked at past impeachment inquiries, specifically around Nixon, ultimately before he resigned, and Bill Clinton also. And generally, when the market sort of bottomed was somewhere before the actual process itself started, but just all the headlines surrounding it before actually recovering. So using at least history as an indicator, I suppose it's a small sample because it was just two other instances I'm referring to here, but it's not like the world ended.
Right, exactly. And, it's important to remember that while the president is an extremely important global position, it doesn't change, Google's ability to make money.
Right, or Apple to come out with a new iPhone.
Exactly. And so while it does certainly create ripples in the market, I agree with you. If he were to get impeached, it's probably not going to happen until the election.
Right.
Or at that point, if he gets impeached, then we would just have another president, and it won't really matter.
And from a political, this is Cory's opinion, but from a political standpoint, the timing of the impeachment inquiry is interesting to me. Because there's been, we've been hearing about impeachment since the day from the Democratic Party since the day that Trump was elected, and
right.
The fact that it all sort of comes together about a year before the election is, I don't know if it's coincidental. I don't know enough about anything. I'm not going to call it a conspiracy. It just it in some ways sort of feels like a political ploy.
Yeah, well, sure, and why not use it if
Sure.
the Democrats can use it to their advantage? Then why not try to use it? Right? It's sad. I mean, it's a horrible. Then again, that's why I don't like politics.
Yeah,
I feel it's so much
slimy. It's
all fear and greed and people telling, frankly, lies constantly. And it's who do you believe? What do you believe?
Right.
Ultimately. But yeah, so again, the impeachment, we're not really worried about it. Again, I don't think it would impact a portfolio. The deal with the market is it doesn't like the unknown unknowns. Right, so an impeachment is something that everybody knows about, and we're going through that process, or there's more due diligence happening. It's the terrorist attacks, or the financial crises, or the dot-com bubbles. Those are the things that cause big ripples through the market, not an impeachment. If it's something that, while it may be certainly negative, but it's known, it doesn't nearly do the damage of something completely out of left field.
Right. So in other words, when we hear about headlines, when there's all of the smartest, quote unquote, smartest people that are predicting what's going to cause the next crash or crisis, it tells me that, well, that's probably not what's going to cause it, right, because of the fact that people are mindful of it to begin with.
Yeah, absolutely. That's so if you hear those headlines, impeachment, Trump's going to get impeached and the market's going to crash 30%, that typically those don't line up.
Right. And I remember when the market was going to crash if Trump was elected, right?
Right.
So
absolutely.
I think that in and of itself is enough to say, okay, maybe we shouldn't put too much into what people predict is going to happen.
Right. All right, so that's box number one. What about this China trade war that's been going on? I feel like I guess it started in February of 18. So here we are in November of 19, and we're still talking about the China trade war. What are your thoughts on that?
Your guess is as good as mine of what's actually happening and if and when something's going to actually get done. It seems like we've just followed the cycle of we're making progress, trade talks have stalled, talks have fallen apart, we're making progress, we're moving in the right direction, talks have stalled, and it just seems like we keep going in one
big circle.
One big circle.
Do you think Trump's using that to get reelected? Then magically we're going to get a trade deal right up when everyone's voting, and then or he might say you need to vote for me because I'm so close to getting a deal done that if you don't vote for me, a deal won't happen. Do you think he's going to use that as ammo, just like the Democrats maybe are using this impeachment? That he's going to use China as like you need me to get this deal done, so reelect me. Do you think he even really wants to be reelected?
Don't know.
I think his ego would, and this isn't a pro or con against Trump. I think his ego, though, would probably cause me to believe that he does want to get reelected, but I don't know.
I think he likes playing the game.
Right. And for what it's worth, I mean, whether you like him or dislike him, maybe this is what needed to happen to get a deal with China. I'm sure Obama tried and we didn't really, get much done. And so maybe we need to do a completely 180 and be rude and bold and inappropriate to get through to these Chinese dictators. I don't know.
It does seem to me, though, that there is enough people, I think, that I feel like that I've talked to that I know that are pretty left-leaning when it comes to politics. And while, generally speaking, they don't like President Trump, they feel like one of the things that he is doing is taking a little bit more of a hardline stance with China, particularly when it comes to like the intellectual property and everything that is going on that has been identified as an issue for a very long time now. But there just hasn't been any politicians that have wanted to mess with it. Yeah,
and so we'll see how that shakes out also. But as far as it pertains to your portfolio, that's why we continue to pound the table on individual stock selection.
Yes.
Because if you're concerned about how this China trade war will impact your investments, you literally can buy individual stocks that have little exposure or a lot exposure based on tariffs, right? And we make those decisions for our clients to protect them no matter the outcome that happens, right? And so if you're in a mutual fund or an index fund, it's very important to remember that you probably don't have this layer of customization going on with your investments.
The one thing I want to add to that also is the point that you made earlier about the impeachment inquiries. It's not going to stop Google or Apple from making money or trying to innovate. I would argue that you could make the same argument for the trade war, right? For in the United States, but also in China.
Absolutely.
Right, and I know that with it being a communist country, things are a lot different, obviously, and much more different than I can even understand, right? I haven't lived there, I haven't been there, but my point is there's companies there too that want to innovate and want to make money, and they don't want to let some trade disagreement between the dictators of China and the administration of the United States stop them from being successful.
Right. Ultimately, these huge countries have economies that are robust and people, and
they're the two largest in the world.
Yeah, so their earnings, and so it's silly to go through it, and it's sad. And again, I'm glad that's just me. I don't really follow politics that closely. We think a deal probably will get done at some point. We think it's very important that you understand the stocks that you own and the exposure that you have, right or wrong, one way or the other. That way you understand how it could potentially impact your portfolio. And certainly if any of our clients that are tuning into this and you want to know what your exposure looks like, we're happy to go over that with you. We have an investment analyst on our team, Jesse, who's doing a deep dive into all of our sectors every month, just making sure that we have appropriate exposure one way or the other.
I think that's probably the biggest and best takeaway from this.
Yeah. And then the third topic I wanted to talk about would be the actual election. I guess we're about a year away from voting to go on, and I guess Elizabeth Warren has started to come up in the polling. I don't know. What's your take on that? What if she gets elected? Will the market crash then?
I don't know. I know that's not a very definitive answer.
Right.
I know that's not probably what people want to hear. I'm inclined to say that whomever is elected is not going to be what causes a market crash.
Right.
Whichever way it goes.
One sector will do better over another typically, based on, typically healthcare would do better, I would assume, under a Democratic, president, but it doesn't have to be that way. Just like, again, like you said, when Trump was elected, some people thought the market was going to do awful. And
Most people.
Yeah, and it turned around and went straight up for a year. I mean, 2017 was a heck of a year in the market.
Right. Yeah, that was a tremendous rally. It's funny to think back to, because I remember I was telling someone this the other day, I had a discussion with a client on the phone prior to the election, shortly before the election, who said, I'm so concerned about what's going to happen if President Trump wins. And then as soon as I was off that call, I got a phone call from someone else. It's like, I'm worried that the market's going to tank if Hillary Clinton wins. And it's just,
right.
That's the world we live in today.
Yeah, it's very fascinating.
And everyone is absolutely 100% entitled to their own opinions.
Yes.
People are going to have their own beliefs, and that's good. I don't think that's a bad thing. I think, not to get too philosophical here, but I think an attempt by more people to try to see things from someone else's point of view, maybe in the world we live in today, might be helpful. But that being said, as soon as you start letting your political bias impact your investment decisions, is when it just gets so murky, and it's just not. I don't see that as a recipe for success.
I agree. So you don't. That's letting fear or greed dictate your decisions, and you don't want to do that. So while politics certainly may play a role in the economy and different sectors, you don't want your individual bias or fear driving you to make some irrational decisions. That's why it pays to have a third-party, fiduciary-minded advisor that's in your corner, acting in your best interest, making sure that you own good, solid companies.
Absolutely. The point I want to add to that, and what I've shared with a lot of people that I've been meeting with recently that have been asking, also pertains to if you're retired or you're going to retire soon and you're thinking about the last thing I want to happen is for the market to crash or to have some horrible event occur right before I retire and start living off of this money I worked hard to save.
That's scary.
A completely understandable concern. Part of our job as fiduciaries, as advisors, as guides to our clients in retirement. The CRPC, the Certified Retirement Planning Counselor designation that we have, chartered
retirement.
I said chartered, and I thought that was
wrong.
Did you
drink a lot of coffee this morning? You're talking really quickly.
No, I guess what I'm getting at here, I guess I did have, I had an extra shot of espresso in my coffee.
I could tell.
This morning, so, all right, I'll calm it down. Anyway, as far as thinking about how that works, though, my point is, if you're going to start living on the money that you've saved, or if you're already living off of the money that you saved, our job is to make sure that all of our clients are set up properly, to make sure they're set up correctly in advance of a market crash or a downturn. So that way, if someone's taking distributions from their retirement account right now, we know that they have ideally several years worth of money that they're going to need as distributions, not invested in the stock market to begin with.
Yeah, exactly. So you want to have a portfolio that's built to weather the ups and downs of the market. And you don't want to have to worry, that if a crash happens, you can't take out $5,000 a month or $10,000 a month, whatever you're living off of.
Right.
And that's exactly right. And that's why you and I have spent hours and hours and hours of our careers educating ourselves on income distributions for retirees. That's part of the Chartered Retirement Planning Counselor curriculum.
Exactly.
And it's very important that we understand that and that we provide that service for our clients. I wanted to back up and get a little bit on politics, though, again, and this might frustrate people, but ideally, believe it or not, the best environment for your portfolio historically has been a Democrat in the White House and a Republican-controlled Congress. You can think of the Clinton years, and the whole idea is because checks and balances do work. What we want to see is we don't want to see the pendulum swinging in a big direction, in either direction, because what happens is these major corporations, if they're worried about legislation changing that would impact their ability to generate revenue, then they're going to sit tight and they're not going to do anything. They're not going to innovate. They're not going to hire. They're not going to expand. So we don't like that. We want them to say, okay, the rules are what they are. They're probably not going to change. So we'll play by the rules and we'll innovate and we'll grow and we'll expand. And that's why stocks go up, because they perform better. And so I think gridlock is good. So that's very important to watch. I don't want to see any political party have complete power. Again, it might be frustrating on the individual level, because if you want something changed with the tax code or healthcare or immigration or whatever that may be, it might not get done. But ultimately, that down the middle road has proven to be a little bit better environment.
I think it's interesting to the point you made about that gridlock, though, is the last few years, really since the election in 2016, right? I mean, there was primarily the Congress and the White House was Republican.
Right.
And I guess people have differing opinions on it, but from my standpoint, where we sit today in November of 2019, the world hasn't ended.
Right.
You know?
Yes, and that's another good point that, you can get fired up about this or get nervous or worry, but, things are fine. The market's hitting against all-time highs and, unemployment's down to 3.6%. Oil is still cheap. We're not in a world war. Things aren't that bad. Now, there's always going to be things that pop up. That's just part of, unfortunately, our human civilization. That's going to always happen. And our jobs as advisors are to help our clients get through that stuff. But just a good point. Things aren't that bad.
And I think, so I can make sure that I'm making myself clear, it's not an endorsement of either side or either political party. It's more just, you could spend so much time and energy and frustration
getting fired up about
getting caught up in this stuff on a day-to-day basis, and I see it all the time, and it's hard to avoid. If you have,
would it have been that bad if Clinton got elected?
I don't know.
To your point, I don't know. I mean, and again, I'm not saying one is better than the other.
I'm inclined to say yes.
You think it would have been bad?
I'm inclined to say yes. The reason I believe that is because of the divide that started in advance of the election, and I think that it's almost silly that in hindsight we thought that after the election was over that all of the hoopla would sort of calm itself down and we'd have a return to normalcy. However, to some extent I feel like it's just been, that was only the beginning, right? Not the end. And I just, for that particular reason though, it would have been different. I don't know if it would have been whether or not you want to say as bad, it's hard to say, but we'd still just have this political, to me, I guess, really zooming out and thinking big picture, to me, it's just sort of, it's sending the wrong signal or something doesn't seem quite right when one of the biggest conversations of topic amongst everyone in our country is the government. Right. It's kind of like the government, what do they serve to do?
Right.
Why is everything revolving around that?
Good point. The whole idea is that this is a free country and, the government shouldn't play a huge role in things. Yeah. Well, I don't know. But I was asking more, do you think that your day-to-day life would have been so horrible if Hillary...
No.
But that's what I was getting at. Yeah.
Fine.
No, I think
just like it's been fine for the most part.
Right. So that's what I'm getting at. Whether you like or dislike her or Trump or whomever, again, I don't think they have that much power where they can actually get down into the weeds and start impacting people's day-to-day lives. So...
Yeah.
But people get upset about it, though. And that's what's interesting to me is that people get fired up about it because I think the media does a really good job of hitting those pain points and stirring up the drama. But ultimately, sure, the economy might have looked differently. We'll never know, right? Obviously. But I'll tell you whether you like Trump or dislike Trump, things aren't so bad. And that's kind of what we have to go off of. And it'll be an interesting year, to say the least. It's all going to start ramping up, and we'll be having more and more shows about politics. So it might take more than just this one to solve it. But I want to talk about the big takeaway here is to understand that you want to work with a competent financial advisor that understands the political arena and that makes good individual stock and bond selections based on that. I don't like outsourcing that to a mutual fund or an annuity company or an index fund that doesn't know anything about your political viewpoints or your individual situation, or most importantly, like Cory talked about, your retirement goals. That scares me because, again, this outside money manager may have a different agenda, or they may support one campaign over another and then have a bias towards that. So you have to just be careful out there with your investments. But I don't think you and I are going to be able to solve politics, even though we tried. But again, the impeachment may or may not happen. I think if it happens, it's not going to happen until the election anyway, so it won't matter.
Right.
China, that's going to be an ongoing conversation. The most important thing you can do about China is making sure you have good quality stocks in there to weather that storm. And then it'll be interesting to see whether a Democrat's able to take over Trump. I don't know. I think as of the recording of this, Bloomberg had just entered the race. So that'll be very interesting to see how that shakes out. And we'll certainly be talking about it more. But again, the way we see it, we want to understand our portfolio and we want to take advantage of which political party is in power to profit from that. But we also want to be careful and not make any big bets in either direction as well.
What do you think about Michael Bloomberg entering the race?
I don't know. I think he did a good job for New York City. I don't know much about him. Again, I follow politics as much as it requires for me to be a good advisor to my clients.
Yeah, fair enough.
And the good news is now I have an investment analyst in Jesse who's doing a lot more of that than I even have to do anymore because that's what we pay him for. So I don't know. What do you think about Bloomberg?
I was joking with some friends last night in like a group text thread where I just sort of cynically said, great, a 77-year-old billionaire will surely be in touch with the real world. So now
He's 77?
Yeah.
Wow, good for him.
So we have a 77-year-old billionaire and an 80-year-old socialist battling our 72-year-old incumbent reality TV star president.
Who's a socialist?
Bernie Sanders.
Bernie Sanders. He's 80?
Or I guess he will be 80 next year.
Wow.
I think, 2020, I think he turns 80.
Wow.
Maybe 2020. Either way, my point is it's interesting that those are... frankly, I'm not sure how old Elizabeth Warren is. And like you said, I think she's, at this point, considered to be the favorite.
For the Democrats?
I think so. But it'll be interesting to see how it all shakes out.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, that's all the time that I have today to talk about politics. We didn't solve it.
I think we've had our fill.
Yeah, we didn't solve it. I think we tried. We tried solving politics. But again, don't let it bother you too much. Of course, you're entitled to your own opinion, and we welcome those conversations with our clients. But just understand the team at Falcon Wealth Advisors. We're paying very close attention to it. Jesse, we have an analyst looking at it very closely, and we're making good, informed decisions with our clients' capital. So for our fun topic today, I don't have a lot. Are you reading anything or watching anything you want to share?
Yeah, so I just ordered a new book that I'm going to actually start today. I'm flying to Houston this afternoon, so I wanted to make sure I had this before the flight. And the book is called it's called What You Do Is Who You Are.
Okay.
And it's by Ben Horowitz, who's one of the founding partners of Andreessen Horowitz, which is a big venture capital firm in Silicon Valley. He and Mark Andreessen were the ones that started Netscape, which is one of the first internet browsers. Yeah, and they've been, incredibly successful.
What happened to Netscape? Did they sell it?
I actually don't know the answer to that, but they've invested.
Did you ever use Netscape?
Yep.
I think I used to log on with Netscape.
Yep. So anyway, the book is called "What You Do Is Who You Are."
Nice.
And I'm going to start that today.
I just finished Jack Ryan season 2 on Amazon. I'm a big fan of that series. It's really, really good. I think Amazon's done a really good producing that. So if you haven't checked out Jack Ryan yet, I'd highly recommend it.
Can you watch that and not see, I assume the character is Jack Ryan, the guy from The Office.
Yeah, no.
Do you not see him as the guy from The Office when you watch it? I've never seen it.
It's really interesting. To me, his character kind of comes through a little bit from The Office.
Okay.
But it doesn't matter.
But he does a good
He's
job.
awesome in that. Yeah, it's a really, really good show. I highly recommend it. So if you're on Amazon Prime, I think you can check out that one. And then I'm reading a book about, my wife she listened to it, and it's about a tribe called Quest and kind of the history of rap, and it's really good. I think it's up for Book of the Year or something, but it's really cool.
Do you know who wrote it?
No.
I'm just curious.
I can bring it in, but it's been pretty interesting. I'm just started it, but it's pretty cool. It's a pretty cool book so far.
Good.
So that's what's going on with me.
Cassie told me that we can start Jack Ryan when we're done watching Breaking Bad.
Oh, okay.
Which we started, so.
Well, that'll take you a while, won't it?
I think so.
Okay, well, fair enough. But you can get through Jack Ryan pretty quickly. There's only like 8.
Breaking Bad's really good. Everyone's always said that, but it's
I've never seen it.
We've watched 3 of the seasons, I guess, but it's pretty intense. It's pretty heavy, and it's kind of not one of the shows you can watch too quickly, I don't think.
Gotcha. Well, thank you again. That's all the time we have for today. You got to catch your flight. But thank you again. As always, please, if you're watching this on YouTube, we'd appreciate a thumbs up button or to subscribe to our channel. If you're listening this on iTunes or Spotify, certainly a 5-star rating if you think it's worthy. You can find us out there on all the various social media platforms as well. I'm out there on Twitter at Jake Falcon CRPC. And Cory, how are you out there?
You can find me on Twitter at Cory Bittner KC.
Thanks again for watching, and we hope you all have a great week.